On this episode of The Whiskey Tornado, we review the 2021 William Larue Weller. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Whiskey Tornado. I'm your host, Lance. Wow, do we have a big-time bourbon to review for you guys today, and it is only thanks to our amazing Patreon members. I have to give a huge shout-out to Ed Bell, who acquired this William Larue Weller, the 2021 William Larue Weller, and he shipped it to me to review. So I am so excited to taste this. Now, before I get into the review, I have to tell you guys, I have never had William Larue Weller before, so I can't really compare this to any past years. So take my review with a grain of salt. I do have a 2020 George T. Stagg that I am going to taste against it, and we'll see how that does. But I am so excited to have the bourbon of all bourbons today for your review. Now, normally on the Whiskey Tornado, I will give it a score. We'll have a 7-point scoring system. This is a unicorn. This is really hard to find. So on a lot of these, I'm just going to tell you whether I think it's bar worthy or bunker worthy. We'll go into a little bit of the scoring, but I'm not, once we get to something like value on a bottle like this, it's impossible because you're probably not going to find it for MSRP. And you guys are smart enough to know if you ever see this bottle at MSRP, just buy it, no questions asked. And then, you know, you get into a lot of what's it worth on secondary, and value is so subjective depending on what you make, how much disposable income you have. There's a lot of different variables on this. So I'm sure this bottle is going to be bar worthy, but we're going to test it out here, and I'm going to go through the scoring system very loosely on today's review. All right, with all that being said, let's get into the appearance of William Larue Weller. It's gorgeous. You know, it's not super elaborate. They just have it etched on. Basically looks like a wine bottle. If you didn't know any better, if you didn't know bourbon, you probably think this was a wine bottle. William Larue Weller etched on there. Very simple. So I'm not going to give it crazy high marks as far as the appearance goes. The appearance is so great to those of us in bourbon because we know what's in the bottle. Otherwise, you know, this wouldn't be, it would be nice, but not anything spectacular. So on appearance, if I'm being honest, I'm going to give it a 0.7. All right, moving on to availability. This is one of those bottles you are never going to find. And if you do, you're only going to find it probably in a lottery. Or you're going to pay ridiculous secondary prices for it. So the availability, we're going to give it a 0.1 because you can find it if you're willing to dish out a lot of money. But now these are even getting harder and harder. Some stores that I know that I work really close with, when they get the Buffalo Trace Antique Collection, you know, they're worth so much money. They go for so much money. They're so sought after that a lot of them will raffle them off for charity. Which is a great idea, I think. So these bottles are just becoming harder and harder to find, and you have to be very lucky or spend a lot of money at a store to get one. So we're going to give the availability a 0.1. All right, let's get into the good stuff. Oh, I'm so excited to nose this for you guys. Oh, man. It does have a lot of those characteristics that I remember from George T. Stagg. Very, very dense, heavy brown sugar on the nose. Almost like a Hershey's chocolate syrup to me. Oh, yeah, really nice. A lot of sweet oak. Lots of tobacco notes. Really nice tobacco notes on there. Cherries like you would get in the regular offerings of Weller, but just cranked up to 1,000. And then a lot of cinnamon. Oh man, gosh, it's gorgeous. You know you're about to drink a wonderful high-end bourbon when you smell this. Makes you start salivating. Oh man, is it good. We're gonna give the nose, I'm bordering on that, like that 0.8, 0.9. I don't know if it was quite as good as the George T. Stagg, but man, it's close. I had this a couple days ago just to let the bottle get some air. And I wasn't honestly that impressed with it, but I knew I needed to let it open up a little bit. So I've had this glass sitting out for about 10 minutes, and it's turned into a different bourbon from a few days ago. I'm going to give the nose a 0.8. All right, moving on to the palate. We're going to do 3 sips here, guys. Cheers, everybody. Oh, yeah. First sip was that lots of brown sugar, buttery texture, really creamy. It's drying my palate out on the back end. Lots of barrel spice. The proof on this is 125.3, so there is some proof, but this is coming off more as like barrel spice to me than proof. But it does feel like it's almost like carbonated, dancing all over my mid palate. Lights up your tongue instantly. That first sip was great. Let's go into the second sip. Cheers again. Lots of baking spices, heavy cherries, lots of those like leather tobacco notes, and again, tons of barrel spice. And the finish is pretty long for me, so I can't jump right into this. It is a little drying on my palate. I don't know. I should have done my research. I do not know the age of the bourbon of this year's William Larue Weller, so I apologize for that. But it is drying my palate out, so you know there is some age to this. All right, third sip. Cinnamon, caramel. Again, those baking spices, almost like Cinnamon Toast Crunch in your mouth. It's really good, guys. Now, it is drying on my palate. That's the one thing I would knock against it. But, gosh, I could spend a lot of time with this. If I'm being 100% honest, I don't know if this lived up to my expectations. It's good. I would give the palate a 0.8, which is a really good score. But for William Larue Weller, the one that I've heard just so much about, I really think George T. Stagg is better than at least this year's William Larue Weller. So I've got a glass poured. It'll be interesting to taste them side by side. But I would give the palate a 0.8, which is still a really solid score. Fantastic bourbon. This is going to be bunker worthy if you can get it for MSRP. So yeah, 0.8 on the palate. All right, moving on to the body. It's super rich. It's heavy. It's viscous. Everything you want in a bourbon. It's a 0.8. Moving on to the finish. It has a very long finish, longer than average. Not the longest I've had. Again, I think this is a 0.8 on the finish. It's everything, all these categories, all the categories that matter anyway are falling into that 0.8, which is really, really good. All right, and then if you guys want to tackle value, this is a highly allocated, almost impossible bottle to find. What you can spend on a bottle is subjective depending on how much disposable income you have. So if you're talking about value on this, it's a 0 to a 1. If you can get it for MSRP, the value is a 1. You can't get any better bourbon for the price. If you're going to pay $1,000, I think the value is almost 0 unless, you just want a super hard to find unicorn for somebody that comes over for special occasions. But no bourbon is going to taste that good, in my opinion. So, you're looking at, if you're going to pay, $600 plus for this bottle, it's a 3.7. It's bar worthy. It's fantastic. The closer you can get to MSRP, the more it moves into bunker worthy for my scoring system. But at MSRP, this is bunker worthy all day long, but the more you pay for it, the more it knocks the score down. So I still think it's a fantastic bottle. I just not quite what I thought William Larue Weller was going to be. So I'm interested to know if this, those of you that have had many releases of William Larue Weller, is this a down year for it? Is it a good year for it? I don't know. I have not watched any reviews on this. So let's taste it against 2020 George T. Stagg. I'm going to smell both of these side by side. Oh my God. This George T. Stagg is ridiculous. It's so dense. A little more like leather notes on the William Larue Weller. More like cherry cola. Almost like a Coca-Cola note on the George T. Stagg. But I like the George T. Stagg nose better than the William Larue Weller. So go in for the taste. That's just one of my favorite bottles ever. Last year's George T. Stagg is so good. It hits everything. You have the fruit notes, you have the rich leather, just so well balanced. Doesn't dry my palate out as much as the William Larue Weller does. Let's taste this back to back. William Larue Weller's good. It's just, to me, it's not George T. Stagg. The 2021 William Larue Weller is not as good as the 2020 George T. Stagg, in my opinion. And the proof on the George T. Stagg from last year was 130.4. I mean, obviously, both of these are bunker worthy. The George T. Stagg from last year in my top 5 bottles for me that I've ever had. But this is a special treat just to be able to taste these. Ed, thank you so much for providing this bottle. I will get it to Ben safely. That's what's so great about our Patreon community. People sharing bottles and trading and doing all those kinds of things. It's just fantastic. Love you guys very much. Thank you, Ed, for sending this bottle, because I would have never been able to get it on my own. So hope you guys enjoyed this review. Please let me know what you think in the comments. Have you had William Larue Weller? Have you had multiple years of it? And if so, how did this year's batch stand up to the previous years? All right, guys, I hope you have a Merry Christmas and a wonderful holiday. Cheers.